Hi, my name's Kimbra and I'm an ambassador for the UNESCO Peer Learning Project, and I'm doing this interview to share with you a little bit about what I went through in the making of my own record, Vowels. There are lots of songs on Vowels that are about quite personal experiences. One in particular, the last song, is called The Build Up. And I guess that's kind of a lot about teenage confusion and feeling a lot of contradictions. It goes back. I went from cities to touch the suburbs. I'm on the highway, but I'm barefoot. I need a map, but not the destination. I need a compass and not a conversation, and just feeling that conflict of wanting one thing and then kind of going back and forth on feeling like very confused about where your direction is. And it kind of explores some of the things that I was going through when I first moved to Melbourne. And yeah, I use the songs to kind of get a lot of that emotion off my chest. Another one is called Withdraw, which is very much about kind of how difficult it is to separate yourself from someone that you love very much, and then to stand on your own 2 feet without that person in your life. I mean, all of the songs, Good Intent as well, is one about kind of feeling a lot of temptation or peer pressure and how to kind of stand strong in the things that you believe, all stuff that we've been through. And I guess a big way for me to cope with certain issues or anxieties that I would have when I was living in Melbourne for the first year or so was to set up mechanisms or ways to overcome these problems that were quite practical and involved getting outdoors around nature and taking up certain hobbies that would help to just bring my mind back to a fruitful place and a positive headspace. I've found in recent years that meditation is something that really helps me to practice a kind of stillness. We live in a world that has so much stimulus and so much noise and distraction, and Facebook, and there's, especially for a teenager growing up now, there's so much going on. It can be very hard to establish a sense of stillness within yourself. And so any kind of practice that involves just spending, time alone in a park, reading a book, in solitude and stillness, connecting with that, I guess, space inside that is very much your true self, and just finding that inner peace, I think, is really crucial in order to kind of overcome those moments where you feel very wrapped up in your own head. I think every song on the album, or every song that I write, relates somehow to a personal experience. I mean, you can't help but subconsciously let your own personality come through in whatever you create. But I also like to entertain the idea of being somebody else, or putting myself in the shoes of someone else, or perhaps even taking inspiration from an experience that a friend had. I like there to be elements of myself throughout the song, and that's coming back to the idea of honesty. But there's also something nice about creating a slight alter ego in some of the songs as well, and having that sense of fantasy about it. The album that I wrote, Vows, kind of commentated the years of my life from about 17 to right up until 21. And of course, those are extremely defining years for anyone. And throughout that period, I experienced a lot of different emotions. I was in my first relationship, romantically, and moving in a new country, and like I said, experiencing loneliness and frustration and vulnerability. High school can be not always the best representation of the real world. So when you're out there, it can be quite a shock and quite a surprise for a lot of people. And I was very blessed that I had a means of channeling all of that. And I think I'm so grateful to creativity, music, art, anything that can allow you to positively express your anger, your frustration, your loneliness, all of those things. It's about finding ways that you can let that out and not have to bottle it up. And I guess, it was important for me to always keep my eye on the bigger picture. That's been a big kind of mantra for me, is not getting too caught up in the frustrations at the time that they were happening, but realizing that was all part of a much bigger plan and a much bigger sort of purpose. you know, at the time when things were moving very slowly for me, making this album, is people forget, you know, that I've been doing this since I was so young, and they think it happened overnight, but it never works like that. Being an artist, of course, there's much that you want to try and channel through your music, and for me, you know, the experience of loneliness in a new city when I moved to Melbourne at 17 was something that I could channel directly into songwriting. That was probably the biggest obstacle that I initially had to overcome, was going from high school and kind of being a part of, you know, a high school group of friends and constantly doing things at school, to suddenly being, you know, in a new country, not knowing anyone, and having to write an album and start from scratch, essentially. But it was really good to kind of, I guess, challenge me and push me to channel that directly into my art. And at the time, although it was frustrating, you know, living alone, not knowing many people, and feeling that pressure to kind of come up with music, I look back now and realize how important it was to have that time of yeah, just challenge, because anything that's easy, I guess, is never quite as sort of potent and convicted as when you've gone through a challenge and come out the other side. So I'm glad that I had that period of, I guess, self-doubt at times, and wondering whether I could actually finish this album, and I think that's all part of the journey.